You're listening to Kat Feeney on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland.
2:45, news at 3 o'clock. Now, when you think of school uniforms, you might think of what you used to wear to school, or maybe you're thinking about what you paid for at the beginning of the year for your child to wear to school. As you're probably aware, many students across Queensland wear fairly traditional school uniforms consisting of button-up shirts or tailored trousers, tunics. And this is despite the fact that most students, teachers and parents support a move away from traditional uniforms to one that might be a little more comfortable, more supportive of a range of activities. The range of activities that children do at school these days. Even so, principals seem determined to maintain traditional school uniforms. So why is this? What's going on and how do you feel about it? Well, to contribute your view, call 1300 222 612. But to hear from someone who's actually put a lot of work and effort into understanding contemporary expectations around uniforms, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Nicole Nathan from the University of Newcastle. Nicole, good afternoon and thank you for your time. You've done a lot of work in this area. Tell me about the research that you and the team have carried out.
Thanks so much for having me. Well, we have surveyed thousands of parents and students and looking at what their biggest barriers are to schools having a more relaxed uniform. So we know that most schools have a traditional uniform and a sports uniform, and we wanted to see what their views were to just having a sports uniform only policy. And what we found from principals, as you can imagine, was their barrier around that it not being appropriate for formal occasions, which we completely understand. So we're really encouraging some sports manufacturers, sports clothing, to try and find some smart activity-endorsing, activity-enabling school uniforms.
I'm interested to know why you were keen to explore this in the first place. Why talk about formal or sports uniforms?
So it came from a bit of a personal place for some of our team. So we're a lot of us are ex-PE teachers and mums of daughters. And, you know, we have been doing physical activity research for a long, long time, and we've tried lots of things. And one of the barriers that keeps coming up is that girls just aren't comfortable participating in physical activity that requires them to wear, or they're just being active day to day when they're in skirts or tunics that, you know, they're just not going to move around in comfortably.
Okay.
So we wanted to see if just simply changing a uniform would make a difference to their physical activity.
All right. Have you found any evidence that it does? Have there been instances where a school might have moved away from a traditional tunic to sports shorts for girls?
Yeah, so we did a very small pilot trial to see if it was, one, feasible and acceptable, and we did see that there was some improvement in children's physical activity, which was really encouraging. So we've now been funded to test this on a bigger scale, and we're actually currently recruiting schools, at the moment only in New South Wales, unfortunately, trying to recruit schools to join into this project.
And we're talking here typically about independent schools, or do some state schools sort of fall into the category of having a sports and formal uniform?
Yeah, so at least in New South Wales, government schools have a policy that they have to allow girls to wear trousers or shorts. But what we're seeing is that what that means is it's still tailored shorts or things like skirts and black leather shoes. So while we know that, across schools that there is a range, but most still do have a traditional uniform and a sports uniform. So we'd really encourage schools to be looking at, can we get away with just a sports uniform only?
And coming back to the point you made about perhaps the design features of a sports uniform could be altered to make them more formal if that was the barrier to change that you identified in principals. But you found that parents and students were supportive. Tell me about those figures.
Yes, so we surveyed lots of primary school and secondary school students, and around 60% of primary school students and 70% of secondary school students really wanted to just have a sports uniform only. And 4 in 5 parents were supportive of this change. And also around 60% of teachers were too. So there is definitely the momentum there. But I think what was particularly interesting was that as girls aged, they were the ones who were really pushing, saying, yes, I only want to wear a sports uniform. And when we know that girls' physical activity declines as their age, I really hope this is something that we can listen to.
Dr. Nicole Nathan with you on ABC Brisbane and Queensland. Stay with us, Nicole. We've got a few callers who would like to join the conversation, but I'm keen to round out our chat with some more of your findings, your research into school uniforms, and this idea that there's a lot of support for sports uniforms only at schools. It's not a position shared by everyone, though. Julie, you're at Caboolture. Your children wore one uniform for school and sport. How did you feel that helped or hindered your kids? Hello.
Hi, Kate. No, I thought it was excellent, both for my part of it and for their part of it. It was a lovely little uniform. It was Craigsley State School, and they had navy shorts with a teal-coloured tabard top. Lovely embroidered pocket, and they look quite smart.
So that's that idea that it could be appropriate for formal activities, school speech nights and that sort of thing. Were they encouraged to, well, that would be their only uniform option?
Yes,
right?
yes, it was.
Okay.
And I guess it'd change, I don't know whether it'd change a bit for high school girls or whether, there was something else on the line for that. But it's just that I know I was very happy with it and they were happy with it too.
Julie, thank you very much. Julie in Caboolture on ABC Brisbane and Queensland. Ratna is in Hervey Bay. Ratna, what do you think about sports uniforms every day for schools across Queensland?
Yeah, I think, in general, whether it's like a formal uniform or it's like a sports uniform, I think it's like a great way to teach our children about like habits and what occasions, what do you wear. For example, when children are going to like nighttime at bed, they need to have their PJ, and when they need to learn all these like skills and what's like good for them and where are they going and what they are wearing is like a very important to teach them life skills as well. And I think it's a really great way to have like the sports uniforms and formal uniform at school.
So a consciousness of dressing for the right occasion, and I suppose as part of that, the respect for the occasion and the other people attending. Is that what you're getting at there, Ratna?
Definitely. This is 100% because, like what we are trying to teach is all like lifelong skills, and when they can see that traditions in their everyday life, when their brothers and sisters or their friends or somebody is wearing and going there, even from like early age, he's wearing like this uniform, he's going to school, and today is like a sports day, my brother is wearing like that. That means they can create that awareness like early, and that means, like when you are going for like a parties or when you're going for some formal occasions, they can understand the importance of like uniforms, It's just not about, like making that as a policy and just giving them awareness and then, just helping them to understand what the real world look like.
Ratna, thank you for your contribution in Hervey Bay on ABC Brisbane and Queensland. I'm Kat. Joe is at Alex Hills. Joe, thank you for the call. What do you think about what's Ratna said or the issue generally, sports uniforms every day?
Well, I went to a state primary school and was very into sport, and then I went to a private girls' school, and you went from being able to wear shorts and everything and playing sport at lunchtime to then being stuck sitting around doing nothing at lunchtime.
Right.
So I think some sort of more gender-neutral uniform, especially for the private girls' schools, wouldn't hurt. Mm-hmm. But I completely agree that uniforms, I think it's an important thing because it does show, doesn't show any status necessarily. So if everyone's dressed the same, there's none of that going on.
Okay.
But I think, some kind of more freedom, because I know the boys' schools all just muck around all day and play handball in their uniforms, but we kind of just get stuck sitting on our butts. So, yeah.
All right, Joe, thank you again. And we'll come back to Dr. Nicole Nathan in a moment. Just to kind of conclude, I guess, the conversation on this, Nicole and her team at the University of Newcastle have done a lot of research into the question of school uniforms, what we wear, why we wear what we wear, and whether there's a chance to make a case for change. But let's just bring in John at the Gold Coast finally. Now, John, your boys went to boarding school. What's your view on uniforms?
If I could make a couple of comments. Firstly, I left boys' boarding school in the early 70s, and we wore a straw boater, suit, shirt, tie, that sort of scene. And regularly, some of the parents would say, well, why does little Johnny, not me particularly, why does little Johnny have to wear long pants in summertime The answer then was, well, we hope we're preparing our students to enter business life, and hence that's the uniform there. That's the first point. Second point is, I'm a great believer in encouraging females to encourage to be active, and if that means wearing shorts or trousers rather than skirts and tunics, that's a great idea. But the other point, though, two more points quickly, is that I have heard the argument that if you've got a uniform, it removes that possibility of becoming competitive or showing off, or alternatively, some people feeling a bit embarrassed if they don't have the resources to dress up, for want of a better word. And the very last point I'd make is our daughter went to a girls' boarding school in Sydney in the early 90s, and at one stage they were looking to change the uniform, and I was blown away because I hadn't given it much thought, of course, but what's involved in that is just ridiculous. Summer uniform, winter uniform, something for chapel, and all the different sports had their own. There was a boarding stuff, and it was just A, the complexity, and then B, trying to please everybody. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, not to mention the cost, no doubt. John, thank you for those very concise and apt points. We are heading toward the 3 o'clock news. So I did want to return to Dr. Nicole Nathan of the University of Newcastle, who has done quite extensive research into school uniforms across Australia. Dr. Nathan, just based on what you've heard in your own work, what do you think the message here is this afternoon?
Yeah, I think all those comments have really resonated, and we've heard them lots of times. And I think, we definitely want to see schools still having school uniforms. And some schools might still keep both by having a formal and a sports uniform. But I guess what we'd really encourage is that's the way they want to go, so that children still have a traditional uniform to wear for those occasions. Let's flip our thinking and say, well, let's just keep those uniforms for the special occasions and wear our sports uniform every day so that children just don't think physical activity is on that one day of the week.
Dr. Nicole Nathan, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Kat. Appreciate it.
And you can find out more about Dr. Nathan's work through the Conversation website. There's a very interesting piece from Dr. Nathan and her team published there today, which delves deeper into some of the research that they have carried out.